Just a quick recap. Thus far, we've talked about what's holding back your motivation. We've also helped identify our deeper motivations that's gonna power us and sustain us moving forward. Now, we're gonna talk about different types of motivation and how we're motivated. Then, of course, we'll get into sustaining motivation and an action plan related to all this stuff. But it's important to cover these things because the more, honestly, from my experience as a professional, that you know about yourself and understand yourself, the better you are to tailor a plan specific to you. And that is what's going to lead to success in the future, understanding more and more about yourself. So there are two types of motivation. Two, not four. I always do that. There are two types of motivation, internal and external. Now, before we get into the specifics, there's no right answer. Some of us are more internally motivated, some of us are more externally motivated. It's kind of a spectrum, and sometimes we're internal in some ways and external in other ways. So again, there's no right answer for this, but it's important to understand how our brain works. And let's be honest, it's not just our brain, it's our heart too. That's part of how we're motivated as well. The more you understand yourself and how you're motivated, the more you'll be able to put yourself in a position to succeed. And also, let's face it, the same challenges you're facing now, those challenges are gonna come up again because life, all right? It's just how life goes. There are gonna be challenges, but the more you understand how you're motivated, the more capable, or let's say the better prepared you'll be to overcome those challenges when they inevitably show their ugly heads. And also on the flip side too, the more you understand about yourself, the more you'll be able to explain to family, friends, coworkers, whoever else is in your life, what you're going through, what you're working towards. Because let's face it, your environment is a major part of how successful you are. And that's at home, at work, or wherever. So the more you understand your own motivations, the more you can help people help you, or at least not sabotage you. Make sense? Awesome. So let's stop and think for a sec. Think back to your why and your deeper motivations that we've uncovered. What about that was so motivating for you? What was that main factor? Was it something more internal or external? Or beyond that too, let's look at other times when you have been motivated in your life, because I'm sure there are times when you felt more motivated, and it doesn't even have to be related to your health and fitness goals. Think about your life. What were those times and circumstances in which you felt more motivated, that you got up and did something? Was it something more externally driven or something more internally driven? What was really driving you? Was it something in your brain or in your heart? Is it something you saw online or the internet? Or maybe was it someone that you look up to? Was it your doctor maybe that gave you a kick in the ass? Or maybe was it yourself when you got to that enough is enough point and you gave yourself a kick in the ass? Whatever it is, pause here for a second, and we'll list some potential examples on the screen as well, but pause here and think, in those times when I was more motivated, is it due to internal factors or external factors? And again, there's no right answer, but take a second here to pause and think that through. Now we've been able to identify whether or not we're more internally or externally motivated. And remember, it's a spectrum, so you could end up somewhere in the middle, and that's totally normal. What we're going to do now is show the pros and cons of being more internally motivated and the pros and cons of being more externally motivated. So pause here for a second as we show that infographic and start to think through how that applies to your particular motivating factors. Awesome job. So we're gonna revisit this over the last few days of this reset, because that's where we're gonna make an action plan. It's important, remember, to identify those pros of how you're motivated and driven, because you can put yourself with an action plan and with planning in a position to better take advantage of those pros and better succeed based on your specific motivators. And on the flip side, if you know your specific challenges or your cons, you can better put yourself in a position to overcome those on a consistent basis, because let's face it, they're always going to be there. That's just how life goes. So now we have covered how we're motivated, We've covered what's holding us back. We've covered our deeper motivations. And the last few days, we're going to talk about sustaining that motivation and creating a plan to keep that motivation going forward in the future so you reach your goals.